He stole my future. But the deepest wound was never what he took. It was the part of me that opened the door and let him in. And before this ends, you'll see the shadow I spent years pretending wasn't mine. I'm a product designer. My world is precision, structure, intention. I build things so they don't break. I built my life the same way, like an engine tuned down to the millimeter. Everything in place, everything under control. And then there was Eli, my closest friend, maybe the only person I ever allowed close enough to see the cracks beneath the polished surface. He was everything I wasn't, spontaneous, bold, almost radiant. People gravitated toward him the way flowers turn toward the sun. But radiance, it blinds you if you stare too long. We started a company together. My designs, his charisma. A partnership that looked perfect from the outside. And I told myself he completed me, balanced me, amplified me. But that was my flaw. I thought my persona, this mask of competence, of clarity, of control, needed someone like him to shine. Underneath, that mask was starving. And Eli, he noticed in ways I didn't.
It began with something tiny.
Almost nothing. A micro-expression, a flicker. Whenever people praised me instead of him, his smile lingered half a second too long. A tension at the corner of his mouth. Admiration mixed with something else. Something sharp. Every line of our friendship had a shadow behind it, but I kept looking away. The first true crack came disguised as coincidence. A receipt poking from under his keyboard. Licensing fees for a design platform, one only I used. His name on the invoice. My design files accessed at midnight. My body understood before my mind did. Some deep animal part of me tightening, bracing. When I asked, he laughed. A light laugh, but too tight. Just exploring your process, he said, avoiding my eyes. Anger rose, but it was thin, flimsy, because beneath it was fear. Fear that I already knew the truth. Fear that something fundamental between us had shifted. Projection. We accuse in others what we hide in ourselves. And in that moment, I felt my own hunger for recognition reflected back in his stolen access. Then came a message, deleted before I could read it, but the preview showed my prototype's name. Sent from a potential investor. When I asked Eli, he shrugged. Just shop talk. His voice, too curated, too light, too Betrayal. The emotional hit landed like a punch to the gut. My trust felt embarrassingly naive. He needed admiration the way lungs need air. And fragile narcissism collapses when ignored. I watched him slowly reinflate himself through my work, my ideas, my identity. Blindness is always a choice. We keep the world shaped the way we want it, until the truth forces its way through. The next escalation was public, a pitch meeting. I started explaining a concept, and he finished the sentence, then kept going, expanding, embellishing, claiming, turning what I had built into raw material for his performance. The investor nodded at him, impressed, not at me. A heat coiled in my stomach. Shame, envy, fury, a constellation of emotions I didn't want to admit lived in me. Afterward, he squeezed my shoulder. "We're a team," he whispered. But the squeeze wasn't comforting. It was claiming. My shadow acts the loudest when I pretend to be the good one. Something in me slipped that day. Not broken, just unlatched. Something darker waking up, patient and alert. A week later, our prototype went missing. The only backup was corrupted. Eli suggested maybe I overrode it or lost track. His tone soft, sympathetic, parental. I knew that tone. It's the voice people use when they want you to doubt yourself. And for a moment, I did. He wasn't just stealing my work. He was eroding my reality. His envy wasn't simple. It was repressed, poisonous. He couldn't admit he wanted what I had, so he destroyed it to feel equal. That was the moment my persona, the mask of rationality, calm, confidence, finally cracked. Then came the final escalation, a private meeting invite. My name was missing. His handwriting on update notes reframing my solutions as his innovations. Through the glass wall, I watched him pitch my entire roadmap, every milestone, every insight, every painful lesson I had earned through failure and persistence. And the investor signed a solo contract, just him. This wasn't sabotage. This was extraction. He wasn't stealing my work. He was harvesting my future and grafting it onto his own. Persona collapse is what happens when the truth becomes undeniable, when the self you built shatters against reality. Everything flipped the day I found the hidden folder on his cloud drive. Dozens of my files, screenshots of my sketches, recordings of our late-night sessions, dated months back, long before the first crack I noticed. It hadn't been escalation. It had been premeditation. His motive crystallized into something painfully clear. Repressed envy sharpened into ambition without limits. He didn't want success. He wanted my identity because his own felt too small. The story stopped being, "Why did he betray me?" and became, "How long had this lived inside him? How long had I refused to see it?" When I finally confronted him, I didn't bring anger. I brought evidence. He didn't deny it. He just sighed and said quietly, "You never needed me. People like you always win. I just leveled the playing field." The words cut deeper than the theft. He saw me as the tyrant of my own success story, the villain in his narrative. Then he delivered the final blow. "The investor's buying me out. You're not in the deal." Something inside me broke open. Not rage, not grief. Something worse. Clarity. Revenge didn't start as a plan. It began as sharpening, a coldness, a steadiness. The part of me that had always wanted control, reclaiming its place. I studied his patterns, his tells, his weaknesses. He thrived on admiration. He withered in silence. He panicked when ignored. He spun lies best when the room adored him. I pulled every silent thread. I tracked the missing prototype. I rebuilt corrupted files. I gathered timestamps proving he accessed my designs illegally. I collected every email where he contradicted himself, every message where he positioned himself as the visionary behind my ideas. If he sensed any of it, he would spin the narrative first. Reputation was his oxygen. Cutting it off was a risk. But I had stopped running from my shadow. I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted the truth to stand without distortion. The board meeting became my window. One room, one audience, one chance. But inside me, a tension grew. Was this justice or obsession? Was I restoring balance or feeding the part of me that liked seeing his mask slip? Real individuation begins the moment you stop lying to yourself about why you're fighting. And here, fighting felt honest. I walked into the boardroom with a drive in my pocket and my heart beat like a war drum. I presented everything. No theatrics, no embellishment, just truth. Cold, heavy, undeniable. The investor's expression shifted. Shock, disgust, then calculation. Eli tried to spin it, tried to charm, to reframe, to pivot. But he stumbled over his own lies. The room wasn't admiring him anymore. Silence was his kryptonite. His contract was revoked. Legal teams swarmed. Everything he stole, every piece of the future he tried to build from my identity, turned to ash in front of him. He looked at me then, eyes wet, voice small, a whisper. Was it worth it? Winning didn't feel like healing. It felt like a void opening, a space inside me where anger used to be, now quiet. And I realized something brutal. This was never about reclaiming my work. It was about confronting the part of me that chose him, the part of me that needed his light, even when it burned, the part of me that ignored the shadows because it was easier. Revenge didn't make me whole. Seeing my shadow did. Because when you finally understand the parts of yourself you've buried, betrayal stops being a mystery and becomes a mirror. If you've seen your own shadow in this, if this story touched something you don't usually look at, then the next episode might save you.